Angelo Bruno, the so-called Gentle Don of Philadelphia. For nearly 2 decades, he ruled the Philly Mafia with calm diplomacy, preferring money over murder. But in March of 1980, a shotgun blast ended his reign in an instant. That single moment shattered the fragile peace he had built and unleashed one of the bloodiest mafia wars in American history. A war with no winners, only blood. The Philadelphia Mafia was once a force to be reckoned with. While not as large as the 5 families of New York, or as iconic as Chicago's outfit, it was powerful, organized, and profitable. Under Bruno, the family thrived on gambling, loan sharking, and labor racketeering. He kept a low profile, preferring to make money quietly, rather than attract unwanted attention. He was respected by the Commission in New York, and feared enough in Philadelphia that few dared to challenge him. But respect and fear only go so far in the underworld. Ambition never sleeps, and loyalty in the mafia is fragile at best. Angelo Bruno's assassination on March 21st, 1980, was more than the death of a man, it was the death of stability. As Bruno's blood stained the streets outside his South Philadelphia home, a storm began to brew within his crime family. The man who pulled the strings was none other than Antonio "Tony Bananas" Caponegro, Bruno's consigliere. Convinced that Bruno's era of restraint was holding back the family's profits, especially in narcotics, Caponegro believed that removing the boss would pave his way to power. But there was one fatal problem. He never secured approval from the Commission. The Commission, the governing council of the American Mafia, operated on one ironclad rule. No boss could be killed without their blessing. Caponegro ignored this law, and his mistake cost him dearly. Just weeks after Bruno's death, his own body turned up in the Bronx, naked, stuffed into a barrel, with dollar bills jammed into his mouth, and anus a brutal message that greed had sealed his fate. Bruno's assassination and Caponegro's gruesome execution created a leadership vacuum in Philadelphia. Into this void stepped Philip "Chicken Man" Testa, Bruno's loyal underboss. Testa was old school, a man of respect who wanted to restore order, but his reign lasted less than a year. In March 1981, a homemade nail bomb exploded on the porch of his South Philly home, tearing him apart. The Mafia had lost yet another boss, and the city was plunged deeper into chaos. Testa's violent death was so infamous that Bruce Springsteen immortalized it in his song Atlantic City with the chilling line, "They blew up the Chicken Man in Philly last night." It was a cultural moment, but for the Mafia, it was the beginning of a nightmare. With Testa gone, the Philadelphia Mafia fell into the hands of a man who would define its darkest era, Nicodemo "Little Nicky" Scarfo. Scarfo was everything Angelo Bruno wasn't. Where Bruno valued peace and profit, Scarfo thrived on violence and fear. Short in stature but consumed by rage, Scarfo had spent years in the shadows, hungry for power. When he finally rose to the top, he ruled Philadelphia with an iron fist soaked in blood. Scarfo's reign from 1981 to 1991 was one of paranoia and brutality. He believed that violence was the only way to maintain control, and he used it liberally. Anyone suspected of betrayal, even loyal soldiers, was marked for death. Murders became commonplace, carried out in broad daylight, in crowded restaurants, even on the streets of South Philly. Scarfo wanted everyone to know. Crossing him meant certain death. But there was a problem. The violence that Scarfo used to enforce his rule also drew massive attention. Law enforcement, which had largely left Angelo Bruno alone, now had the Philadelphia mob under a microscope. The FBI, state police, and local detectives all scrambled to untangle the web of murders. Each body added fuel to their investigations, and Scarfo seemed blind to the danger of his own recklessness. One of the darkest chapters of Scarfo's reign was the murder of Salvie Testa, the son of the slain chicken man. Salvie was young, ambitious, and deeply respected. Many saw him as the natural future of the Philadelphia mob, but Scarfo saw him as a threat. In 1984, Scarfo ordered Testa's execution. Lured to a supposed meeting of peace, Salvie was betrayed by those he trusted and gunned down at just 28 years old. It was a move that shocked the underworld and cemented Scarfo's reputation as a paranoid tyrant, willing to kill anyone, even allies. Scarfo's bloodlust didn't end there. His reign became a reign of terror. Dozens of murders stained the streets of Philadelphia, each one tightening law enforcement's grip on the family. Associates began to fear for their own lives. Whispers of betrayal grew louder. Even within Scarfo's closest circle, trust disintegrated. And as the violence escalated, business collapsed. The very profits that had once kept the Mafia strong dwindled. Gambling operations suffered, loan sharking slowed, and unions, once reliable sources of income, became battlegrounds for federal investigations. Scarfo's obsession with control had destroyed the very foundation of the family's power. By the late 1980s, Scarfo's paranoia caught up with him. Wiretaps, informants, and investigations piled up. In 1988, he was convicted of racketeering, extortion, and murder, earning him a 55-year sentence. His empire crumbled as he was led away in handcuffs, his iron grip finally broken. But the story didn't end there. Scarfo's downfall left yet another void, and into that void stepped John Stanfa in the early 1990s. Stanfa tried to rebuild, but his reign sparked yet another war. This time against Joey Merlino, a brash and flamboyant gangster who represented a new generation. Philadelphia became a battlefield once again, proving that the wounds of the 1980s had never healed. The Philadelphia mob of the 1980s is remembered not for its profits, not for its power, but for its destruction. Angelo Bruno's assassination had unleashed a decade of chaos that left the family broken beyond repair. Scarfo's paranoia and bloodlust turned one of America's most disciplined mafia families into a cautionary tale. The lesson of the Philly mob war is clear. In the mafia, violence breeds only more violence. Greed and ambition may seize power, but paranoia destroys it. In Philadelphia, there were no winners, only blood. And as history reminds us, the streets of Philadelphia are still haunted by the ghosts of that violent decade, a time when the mafia destroyed itself from the inside out.